You're working really hard. You went through the high school, you went through the college, then you got a good job, you started your career, then you got married, now you're working hard for your family, to be able to raise your kids, to be able to go on nice holidays, and to be able to afford all the things that you have. But somehow, a decade later, you find yourself a little bit lost because you're looking around and you're not really seeing your family around, but most of the time you are just working, working, working. You're chasing after something, after the next goalpost, and you have that feeling that you're losing yourself in that process. And then next thing you know, your wife has an affair, or you end up having an affair because life is too intolerable. Where did it go wrong? How did a life that started so well with such good intentions eventually end up in such a terrible place? And this particular pattern repeats itself in countless of families all across the globe. And who do we blame? What do we blame? We blame ourselves. We blame the system that makes us work so hard. We blame the inflation. We blame the spouse. We blame everything without realizing who is really at fault here. Well, let's stop using the word fault, actually, but replace it with responsibility, because that's more kind of, impersonal. It's not about blaming and finger pointing, but it's understanding who is responsible for making you act that way. You might ask now, hey, I didn't choose to act in any certain way. I was merely reacting to the system's demands or to my wife's demands or whatever the situation was. I was just doing my best, trying to survive, trying to keep up with the pace, with the demand that the life puts on me. But then the question becomes, who made you that way still? Who made you so submissive that you always have to react instead of acting? Who made you in such a person that you can't draw the line, call your own shots, dictate your own rules, but you always have to follow someone else's rules? You will say, oh, well, it's not my fault because I'm employed, for example, and there's always a boss, there's always someone who you need to listen to. And whatever they say, you gotta do because you're afraid of losing the job. There's always an excuse. It's true. Kind of looking at it from your perspective, anything that you will say is true. It's not a lie because it's true in your reality. But again, the question is, who made you buy into the concept that the reality can be only this way? Living for something that's going to come in the future, but that future never comes, and you end up living a miserable life. Who said that it has to happen that way? The answer to all of those questions is, at some point when you were growing up, because it invariably happens when you were growing up as a child, those people who were raising you and also the society, for example, if you went to the kindergarten or, to the play school, all of those people who raised you made you a certain way because you had to obey them. Your survival literally depended on typically your mom and your dad to be able to, support you and be there for you and give you their emotional support and feed you and literally keep you alive, okay? So whatever they said to you, whatever way they made you feel, you took it as a gospel. You took it as a blueprint for your life. And now, when you're 30 or 40 or 50, you are still subconsciously following the same footprint, the same rules. And you're wondering why life is that way. Well, surprise, surprise. It's because you were made like that. But it's not all bad news. All of those little rules that you follow can be overwritten. We can do the right kind of therapy that goes deep into the actual root cause and makes you realize and understand why you made all of those subconscious decisions when you were a child, why it was necessary for you to make those decisions, adopt those patterns, and then with that understanding, you can easily change those associated emotions, all of those blockages. You can release the blocked anger, guilt, all sorts of emotions, self belittling. You are constantly, probably even without being aware of that, you are constantly belittling yourself. You are feeling insignificant in some way, shape, or form. That's the so-called inferiority complex. So you can fix all of that, and then moving forward, you can become a person who is capable of calling their own shots to a greater degree, decide really how you want your life to be, and ultimately you can have a better relationship with your partner, with your children, and also with your work colleagues and with your superiors, because they will start feeling that you are a person with a higher self-value. And as such a person, you can be given more opportunities. People will start trusting you more because you will start trusting yourself.